This meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. An adequate notice of this meeting has been provided as required by law. Certain portions of the meeting may be closed to the public for the purpose of personnel or other matters, as outlined in the Sunshine Law. Decisions made or discussed in closed session will be made known to the public at a later date. All contracts awarded by mayor and council must comply with the affirmative action requirements of NJAC 17:27. Fire exits located in the direction I am indicating. In the event of a fire, please move in a calm, orderly manner to the nearest smoke-free exit. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Yockel?
Here.
Councilman Wilkinson?
Present.
Councilman Cassius?
Here.
Councilwoman Story? Here. Councilman Philly?
Here.
Councilman Olmarossi is here, and Mayor Gordon.
Here.
Six present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're here for another budget meeting. I think we have some good news to share this evening. I want to continue to thank our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Blum, and our Finance and Budget Chair, Councilman Cassius, for their hard work and diligence to make sure that we have an acceptable budget. I think it falls in the guidelines of stabilizing taxes that we talked about previously. The capital budget is being tweaked. The final amended version of our operating budget is ready to go forward, and I think everybody will be happy. I again reiterate that no portion of this budget really deals with any proposed tax reval. The information that was put out previously is incorrect. We continue to discuss tax revals with anybody that wishes to discuss it. We talk about it at our meetings, we talk about it here, and we're open-minded about it. So any information that had been put out there in an anonymous flyer was incorrect, and we certainly disavow any, or I disavow any information that was in that flyer. It was intended to instill fear rather than to assist in clarifying a situation. This time I'd like to pass the meeting over to our Budget Chair and Finance Chair, Councilman Andy Cassius.
Thank you, Mayor. We are here to discuss the tying up of the current fund budget for 2014. We have a proposed amendment that would allow us to lower our introduced increase of $103.35 to $99.45. The content of that amendment is distributed amongst the sheets that you're provided with, the sheets A through E. As we go through and as Ken goes through each of the sheets, I'll just note which one we're talking about so everybody can take a look and follow along with the conversation. It should be pretty straightforward. We're going to start with item number 3 on the agenda, which is going to be sheet A, appropriations as amended. So Ken, you want to start?
Okay. If you look at section A, on page 1 is the salaries and wages. There are no amendments to that page. If you flip to page 2, we have an amendment under the municipal clerk, other expenses. We were able to reduce that other expense line item by $8,160. There is no contested primary, so we will not need security for the primary. So the budget's going from 101,895 down to 93,735. Clerk other expenses. If you go a little bit further down the page, emergency management, there's an increase of $30,000. That $30,000 is the emergency management plan that we want to update. That was requested by emergency management. That is not allowed to be a capital item. So that is moved into the current fund budget. So that budget went from $4,000 to $34,000. If you go to sheet 3, public buildings and grounds, there's an increase of $37,000. That is due to fire alarm system for this Borough Hall building. We had discussed it in capital. We were able to get it revised down from the 50 we had in capital. We did take it out of capital. We've had a couple incidents here at Borough Hall, and it is under the direction of the fire chief and the police chief that we have to take care of this to make sure we're secure here. We've had a couple of incidents. One was the other night at the meeting. We had a major, well, not major, we had another incident in the police department where a surge protector was completely fried. So we had,
Taking this as a sign
yes,
to move on this.
so we've been having some power surge things. We spoke to the electrician. He felt it was more of it's a voltage problem that's being reported on the computer UPSs. So we had PSEG. So they're looking on their end, but we need to secure this building. So it's the recommendation that we put this back into, instead of doing it through capital, we're going to go right into the operating budget and increase buildings and grounds other expenses to $152,000. If you look a little bit down from that, the animal control other expenses, we got the revised price from the Township of Woodbridge. We had an estimate, it came in lower than the estimate, and also we had more animal control trust fund money, so we're able to reduce that budget from $10,800 down to $4,875 for a decrease of $5,925. Further down the page, PRS is the Public Employees Retirement System. Bills were due April 1st. Less than 5 days before the bills came out, bills were due. We got revised bills from the state. Good news, they went down. So, Public Employee Retirement System goes down $26,867. Appropriation was $270,234, it's down to $243,367. Same holds true for Police and Fire Retirement System. The original bill was for $656,081. It's down to $613,663 for a decrease of $42,418. And that is the amendments as listed for the current fund budget as is, which is a decrease of $16,370. I will just request from you, we're looking to introduce the amendment at the May 1st meeting when we have the public hearing, after we have the public hearing on the budget. Just if any grants, we have a couple grants out there that are pending. If we're notified of any of them prior to the finalization of the amendment that we get printed up from our auditors, I will add them in. It will be no impact towards taxes. It will just be increase on appropriation and an increase on the revenue side. So that is the appropriations. The impact it makes if you go to section B, which is the revenues, under page 2, that reduction of $16,370 is a reduction to amount to be raised by taxes. So including the library amount to be raised, it went from $12,142,575.21 to $12,126,205.21, a decrease of $16,370. What that does for the tax impact, as was mentioned, at introduction, the house assessed at $65,000 had an increase of $103.35. With this budget amendment, the house assessed at $65,000, the increase would be $99.45. So we were able to get under $100.
You can see that on sheet C. I do want to say that the original, maybe before the pre-drafting stages here, the original increase was a lot more than that. It was a lot more than 117.
With finance, we were at about 175 or something like that.
So we worked our way down to that 117, and we worked our way further down to the introduced, and we've made our way down further as long as everyone's agreeable to the amendment.
comment on package B.
Yes.
The library, we're giving them a little bit extra again this year over what we're required to give them. Last night there was a Board of Education meeting, and one of the plans for the Board of Education is to expand the kindergarten program to a full-day program, which will involve reducing the libraries and making them classrooms. So I would expect that if the plan is implemented, that our municipal library will see an increase in usage as a result of the potential of school libraries closing. And I'd like to be a little proactive with that. It's not the 11th hour, it's even the 12th hour at this point. The meeting was last night, and that's when the plan was discussed. But I'd like to at least consider if the budget can be tweaked a bit to consider the potential that the library may need some additional funding this year. It's the first time I've mentioned it to anybody here. I don't know if that is doable at this point, if it's just way too late to do it. But I really do see an increase in usage at the library but next year if the school libraries close, as I would anticipate might happen if we go to a full-day kindergarten program.
Did the library give any type of indication?
Again, I haven't spoken to the library. This happened yesterday at the Board of Education meeting, and the true impact probably will not hit until the school year starts September or October. So it shouldn't have an impact through the end of this year. But certainly November, December, there might be an impact. And then next January, we have to consider the library will probably require some additional funding if the proposed plan by the Board of Education is implemented as to discuss it.
My understanding is that the superintendent has approached the library about if this goes through, about them doing, I don't know that I'll remember the precise figures, but something like 17 classes have been working groups of children in middle school to, 4, I guess, library skills classes and so on, and, quite a number involved now.
Are they planning on giving any type of assistance to the library for
That
that?
certainly is a question.
I mean, I would put
why
that
we
question
should-
back to the Board of Ed, that,
Why we should absorb all of these
Right.
costs
It's all very new. I mean, at the very least, they may have excess books that would be then turned over to the library, so there may be a cost savings in the purchase of children's books, for example. I don't know. I don't know any of the facts yet. I just understand that this is what went on last night.
I mean, I understand the point, and my recommendation would be is, if it's even fully implemented, we're not gonna know. It's not gonna be an impact till September, might not even hit instantly with that. I would say first the library should go back to the Board of Ed and say, listen, we have no problem doing this, we'd love to bring the kids in. Are you looking to give us any type of assistance to cover any additional costs? I mean, bottom line, it's all Borough of Roselle Park taxpayers. So there's, you can say them, us, whatever, we're all one. But you don't know what kind of impact. I mean, I would almost say kind of ride it out and see because what happens if they don't implement it and we give the library more money now?
It's pretty
You know.
unlikely.
Well, can't we,
I mean, they already have registration set.
Well, once we adopt, we adopt, so.
Yeah, I
We would
think
be able
what-
to do a transfer if needed, if we had available funds, we would have to see where we are.
I guess maybe the purpose of me bringing it up is, I think that this budget now is a good budget, but there may be some circumstances that change going forward. I don't see those circumstances changing until the end of this budget year, but we may need to, at some point, take a look at it, revisit it, and see if there's some transfer of funds that is necessary, and if so, if it's at all possible to do that towards the end of this year, and then maybe next year's budget consider it.
I mean, when she does next year's budget, obviously, she would know what's going on, and when they prepare their budget to present to us, it would be factored into there.
Well, let me just say this. I know that if if we kept it as is, and if they see, if they see this program implemented, or if we realize this program is implemented, and then it does stretch the library's budget in terms of resources, they do have a fund balance that they can use. I'm not suggesting that they use that fund balance over the long term for these costs, but we don't leave them high and dry this year. I have faith in the library director and the board, they'll be able to recognize what costs wouldn't have been expended due to the program, or I should rephrase it, were expended because of the program and the use of the library and whatever you purchased. And then we can have discussion either with the council or by first going to the Board of Ed saying, how can we somehow work this out? With the understanding, again, that all the money goes into a pool, and whether you're paying the Board of Ed or you're paying the Borough Council, it's all going to go to the same purpose. But I think leaving it as is doesn't leave the library put out. If it does stretch the library's budget more than what their fund balance is, then we have a serious miscalculation on the part.
I mean, I'm assuming they're gonna do it during the regular operating, the library's not gonna open any additional
Well,
hours.
it would be in school hours.
Right.
So, I
But when
mean,
the library requires additional management during those school hours, because right now it's minimal staffing during the day, especially in the children's department, so there may be some additional staffing. And the needs clearly would change, in that you're talking elementary school children would have only the borough library to access for educational programs about the library and for books.
Well,
So there would be changing needs, but that's something that we don't know yet. We can't predict what.
I mean, I'm assuming too, though, the board's not gonna just let the kids walk there.
That was
They're
gonna
gonna have
be-
to
that
get
was gonna be the next
supervision too,
question.
so,
Uh,
you know, I would.
I mean, I wasn't at the meeting, but my understanding is that even that was discussed, and the idea, the concept might be to walk the kids from Sherman School or Aldine School to the library, which is centrally located in town, but certainly Robert Gordon School is right there, so that would be an issue.
But I don't know if this is what Ken was intending, but there's gonna be people in there with them, other than the staff of the library. Teachers would be in there.
I think it is something we're going to have to keep in mind. And
Yeah,
actually,
you
if
know.
we find that it is stretching us before the end of the year, the answer would be to go then to the Board of Education. Say, you know, you kind of blindsided us on this.
But I mean,
You know,
I'm sure
if
they're
we
gonna
look
have
at their
talks
own budget.
with the library, you know, ongoing, and I think the library should come back as a board and say, you know, we're willing to do everything possible, you know.
Yeah, I'm
If,
sure
you
that
know-
they will, it's just that it's, as we've been saying, it's early.
Right.
So let's for now say that it's up to the library board and the Board of Education to continue the discussions and figure out.
Something that was also discussed at the Board of Education meeting in regards to full-day kindergarten, possibly closing the libraries, a hybrid class between their computer classes, you know, teaching library research skills in those avenues. So they don't even know specifically, you know, if they're still going to in-house teach those library researching skills or anything like that.
But they've already given notice to librarians.
Right, I'm saying as far as
They're gone.
as far as
To-
the
to
research
teach the
skills.
libra- Yeah, but that's what librarians teach.
Well,
Well, I mean, probably contractually, they had to do that,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
By
Whether-
law, they have to give 6 days notice or something like that.
Some are even 9 months, so that might be a lot of people already doing it.
That doesn't always necessarily mean that they're going to get rid of them, it just means that they're preparing in case it has to happen. Because you can't call them up in June and say, oh, by the way, we don't need you.
But I wouldn't hold my breath for it to change.
But I would definitely, you know, have the library board and the Board of Ed, even if it's the two finance committees, discuss.
what the options are in the event that there's this
I guess-
burden that they feel at the end of the year, because then we're gonna quickly need to, because it's not like in January it's gonna stop, the program's gonna keep going through January when we're in the preliminary budget talks, or when the council's in the preliminary budget talks, so something's gonna have to be done at least in that interim.
Yeah, because by
Where-
the time we have an under budget for next year, it's practically at school.
Right. I do want to just point out that this number that everyone sees in sheet 2 of B is not the full amount that the library is going to get. That's the minimum amount,
Right.
plus the amount that we allocate for them, which is,
We're getting $378,900,
right, which is roughly,
which is
1,200 less than last year,
like 1,100.
something like
They
that.
got 380 last year.
And we only subtracted that amount based off of their request. So they were funded at the full amount that they requested. I understand this is another issue, but I think we're at least mindful of the potential situation. So is the agreement to just keep it as it is for now, and understanding that there'll be some negotiation between the borough and the Board of Ed, the library board, and the finance committees? Okay.
Thank you.
We were at sheet C, we did the grants, sewer revenues, sewer appropriations stayed the same.
Yes, there was no change there. We did get the second file from the water company. The water company changed systems, so 10 months are under the old, 2 months are under the new. We had the 10 months all ready to go. The 2 months that they sent us was the wrong town. So,
Can we go that? Can we go that?
Roselle.
we believe it's with our software vendor, formatting that for billing purposes. So we're hopefully getting a phone call, and then we'll introduce the ordinance. Level rate the sewer, so.
Okay. Item number 9 is going to be discussed as a personnel item in closed session. Are there any other issues before we move to go into public portion about the amendment?
I don't know. The question that was brought to me was the injured fireman has supplementary care, supplemental, so much.
Workers' compensation?
Yeah, in other words, there's a lot of questions being asked that if that was the case, because apparently he's struggling being on the workman's comp. I don't know.
I don't know.
In other words, the injured fireman in January was out on disability.
If it's a workers' comp case, it's a litigation, so we probably should discuss it in closed session.
Okay. All right.
That's what I'm thinking, so. I'll put
All
that
right,
down.
I'm just, okay.
Any other questions on the amendment or comments? Seeing none, is there a motion to go into public portion?
I make the motion.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Public portion is now open. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward. You'll have 7 minutes. After this.
Saul Kirsten, 150 Berwyn Street. I guess just some clarification on points regarding the Board of Education. The full-day kindergarten was voted on and it was approved. So that's, unless the budget gets, in total, gets rejected or voted down by the board, it has been passed, as the Councilwoman stated, enrollment happened and got filled. So that's going to happen. The mayor is correct in that, and Councilman Ryan Kelly, that there are discussions on how to handle the library aspect of full-day kindergarten. And this is just my personal observation. In doing some research, there was a feasibility study that was proposed by, I don't know the total name of the group, but it was a school library group on incorporating both school library programs with the public library. And I'm going to provide that, I guess, to the board and to council to review. I guess it's the best practices, protocol or procedure, and they have all these steps. So, but again, full-day kindergarten is going to happen, but the library aspect is still kind of in discussion. But it looks like at least in the immediate future, libraries will become classrooms, and what will happen with books and that instruction is yet to be determined. With regard to, and I don't know where this is, I guess it's not the sewer budget, but the joint meeting every year, I guess, I don't know the right term, gives a refund or gives money back to municipalities. And I think it was $40,000 this year. Or
It's their surplus.
their surplus.
Their surplus, and every year when there is one, they send a letter to us indicating the amount and whether we would like it as a credit or a refund. Excuse me. This year we didn't get the option. But after Councilman Kelly reported it from the meeting, the next day the gentleman showed up with the check.
They're doing that from now on, by the way.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, they said it's for their bookkeeping purposes, they're gonna get checks every year.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was just because the amounts were very substantial this year as opposed to the past year, so.
So that amount that's provided to the borough, that's included in,
That
This
goes in,
budget.
that goes in the sewer budget under the joint meeting as a budget refund.
and that is
And that'll
affected,
lapse after the second year to surplus.
so that affected the decrease to the 9. to
No, that has nothing to do with
That's what I'm
the
saying.
numbers presented.
This is the sewer budget, that's gonna affect that.
It's not gonna affect
It's not
anything.
gonna affect the numbers because that went in as a budget refund. It wasn't given to us as an option to reduce the appropriation
For the sewer budget.
for the sewer budget.
Okay. And has any consideration been given to have a second bulk day?
No.
We awarded the bid, I don't want to speak, we awarded the bid for one day. There have been discussions that DPW is going to be meeting with the committee to do some type of in-house second day, or not necessarily a devoted second day, but some type of system to have.
We're negotiating that. We're in the process of talking.
So there are alternatives.
Alternative,
Yes.
E-day, you know, electronics day, so forth and so on. Yeah, we're in the process of discussing.
Perhaps something on a more continuing basis.
It's almost gonna be the same principle as white goods.
Has there been consideration to speak with Roselle? Again, because they do both, I think. I don't know, weekly basis, at least a monthly basis.
No, there's been no negotiations with Roselle.
So-
We're trying to work up something where we can handle it in-house, like the white goods, be certain days that, you know, you're bringing electronics in. So, yeah, we're still, it's still in the infant stage, we're still negotiating.
The idea, I think, is to have a system that almost or does sustain itself,
Yeah.
just as,
There would be, there'd have to be an ordinance passed, a fee ordinance passed, a couch, or whatever's an allowable item in bulk will have to be given a price list, and then
You could call at any time.
Call,
You wouldn't have
and
to wait
it would
for
go
all
from
day.
there.
Will there be a fee associated with that? Minimum.
Yeah,
just
enough
to cover the cost of the roll-off.
Yeah, just to cover the cost of all.
And the reason for the animal control increase? Just because-
Well, it was before the contract was settled with Woodbridge, so when we
You just
we had an
budgeted that much,
estimate,
okay.
We budgeted, plus we had more, more collections came in on the trust animal control for the licenses. Money goes from there to help pay that contract.
Thank you.
Two shows.
Anyone else wishing to speak, please come forward.
Pick up the Village 612 Sugar Dam in Roselle Park. These are nice chairs. Should bring a couple downstairs for the residents. To the chair, either to the chair or for the chief financial officer, these questions, explanations. Recycling, $303,500. Does that include pickup, disposable, and sale of this, recyclables? Red light revenue, how much was realized from that? Court revenue is 450,000. Is that all in fines, or is that net, or does that go to county and to the state? Youth center. What are we realizing in revenue? Is that our building now? Since we don't have Boys and Girls Club of America in there, what do we pay? Legal fees for 2013. The $16,000 for the primary and general election. Is that mandated by the courts? And if not, get rid of it. Cable TV 34, we're allowing 15,000. Is that for what? Is that for repairs, the 15,000? We're receiving $161,980.42 from both, from Comcast and from Verizon. County taxes, 14.47. Municipal tax, 32.20. Municipal is twice as much as the county. School taxes, 55.83%. That's almost twice as much as the municipal. Garbage disposal, $325,000. Garbage collection, $345,000. Which makes me ask the question for recycling. $303,500 for recycling. The garbage is $345,000. Recycling is less weight. And you're picking up bulk garbage, and they're picking up garbage just about every day. You pick up recycling twice a month. Something that's not cricket. And the municipal tax increase is going to be under $100. What brought that down? Well, we can go on all night. This is spending of money. Taxpayer can ask spending of money.
Continue.
Huh?
Continue.
It's what?
Are you finished? Are you done asking questions? Do you want answers now?
Yeah, well, this is unlimited questions and answers, you know. This is no time limit.
7 minutes.
No 7 minutes on
Yeah.
this. This is spending of money. And the taxpayer has the right to ask all the questions and to his or her satisfaction.
Ask your councilman offline. Don't jeopardize everyone else's 7 minutes.
Okay.
Just for the purpose of information, recycling is picked up every week in the borough. Residents are picked up every other week. Business district is picked up every other week.
And you said something about every week.
Correct. Recycling is picked up every single week, whether it be residential or commercial. They're on different weeks. So 1 week it's residential, the next week it's commercial, next week it's residential.
No cardboard and commingle.
Yes.
You pick it up at the apartments. Is that what you're saying?
No. The businesses are picked up 1 week. Residents are picked up another week. The next week, businesses are picked up. The next week, residents are picked up.
That's the first time I'm hearing it, and I could be wrong.
Recycling, the money that you mentioned, just so you know that when the way our contract is bid, the recycling vendor owns the material once they pick it up. So they reap any benefits from the money they receive for that material. The market has bottomed out with that material, so they're probably receiving less, but I don't know what other comments there were. I don't know what the questions were on that. Kent, did you have anything to add on the recycling?
Just that we've also increased the vegetative waste program, so
Right.
it covers from April 1st to December 31st.
Red light revenue? You're talking about for the 13 budget, I'm sorry, for the, this past year or so far in 14?
Next year, the year 2013.
2013, we had 4,692 paid tickets, roughly bringing in $215,832. I mean, gross.
What figure is gross if that amount is not take out?
Is that net to us?
No. That was the gross
Do we
number.
have to split it with the state and?
No, that's the municipal portion. We have to pay our monthly fee to the contractor, and the county pays the monthly fee.
Okay, I have court revenue, fines net, county, state. I guess how is our court revenue accounted for?
I'll take that. The 450,000 you mentioned is what we anticipate in the budget
Or,
for municipal court fines and costs. The question you asked for the 450,000. Based on, that's what we anticipate realizing from the courts. In 2013, we actually brought in 852,000. So this is an area that we help to regenerate the surplus we use every year. This amount of 450,000 is just the municipal share of fines and costs that we get, we keep.
Youth center revenue. Or what we're paying for with the youth center.
The question was, is the revenue from the building?
I don't have that separated out here. If there's much, it's very minimal. But I know the question was also asked is what do we pay out?
Right.
And I believe it's 72,000, but I just want to double check.
And that was adjusted a few years ago.
Right. So we got rid of, it used to be 100,000, we got rid of our summer camp. And the Board of Ed is just running the after-school program.
We have 2013 legal fees. 0. Fees due to litigation. 0.
for 2013?
Yes.
The deal as it was in 13 is as it is in 14. There is no money paid for litigation.
As I explained to you at Thursday night's meeting,
I can hear you.
2014, zero money has gone out for municipal litigations. Okay? Because that's included in the bid that is submitted every year, that he does all work, all borough work, and all legal work for the same price.
That's the contract we have.
That's the
with
contract that we have with the attorney.
Ah,
So as of now, you could say it's, whatever it is, 50,000 for all the work that's, whatever it is. So it's all incorporated in the same price.
The additional cost for the general election is not a court order.
then why
We can't do it back and forth. It's been 7 minutes.
we're not going back and forth.
Okay.
We haven't gone forward as yet.
Okay.
So why don't we just stop it and save $16,000?
That's a question. The 7 minutes is up.
Yeah.
I'm trying to answer the questions as you
Okay.
asked them.
The 16,000 has already been reduced by 8,000, if you heard
It's
earlier
not
in the
contested
event.
price.
So to answer your question, no, it is not a court order. Cable TV 34, he was mentioning the money
The appropriation is,
budgeted for it.
yes, The appropriation is $15,000. We had moved out, we used to charge TV 34 salaries, part-time salaries and wages under the clerk. It was discussed earlier in the budget process. We moved that out under TV 34, other expenses. We now have an outside vendor. It's also to cover the maintenance contracts for the equipment in there. And there's a little extra in case we need repair monies.
All right, so now we have, the last item was garbage disposal and collection, which is on page 2 of sheet A. I didn't write down the question.
He just said garbage disposal,
325,
325,000.
collection 345, that's what we're saying.
That's what it is.
$670,000,
Yes.
pick up the collection. And how about workman's compensation and other insurance?
He didn't ask
I
that.
didn't ask. Well, sometimes I forget things.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Excuse me, don't cut me like
Jake, your time's up.
7 minutes.
Your time's up, Jake. Don't disrespect everybody.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Ed Leonard, 504 Laurel. Just a quick item. With respect to leaf pickup, is that covered under the vegetative waste?
Yes.
That's part of it. What seemed to happen last year, living across the street from Monaco Perry Park, the leaf pickup kind of ceased prior to really a lot of the leaves falling down. The result of this, particularly with the park there and all the trees and stuff, the sewers got all blocked up with leaves, necessitating DPW to come out during the winter to clean out the corner catch basin on Laurel and West Webster Avenue. I'm just wondering, timing-wise, what was the date that this, because it seemed to get cut off really early last year, long before all the leaves fell, and I know long before the leaves of Monaco Perry Park were off the trees.
Yeah, I think this past year, actually the last 2 years have been some awkward years
Right.
for the leaves. Remember October of 2012, we had this snowstorm which damaged all the trees. And then last year we had Hurricane Sandy and all the other problems. So there were, it was some awkward years. I think that what we have this year is a little bit longer period for leaf pickup. And the DPW hopefully is better prepared because they're scheduling things now as they've never scheduled before to try to extend that period as necessary. The reason why you don't want to enter into a contract is because all the leaves come down in September. You don't want to have a contract going through November and not take advantage of it. So we're trying to make arrangements so that way DPW can work out the different time schedule based on the weather conditions. And hopefully this year we have something that falls on the clock, so that when the leaf pickup ceases, every leaf in the ground will have touched the ground, with a place in the bin, and will get picked up.
Last year was all, or Sandy was
The year before. I'm sorry.
year before. Last year was the negotiated contract. Didn't we have the negotiated contract last year for vegetative waste?
Yes.
After we had two unsuccessful bids.
Right.
So we had to negotiate a contract, so that might be some of the awkwardness that we saw last year, but
It
as you
seemed
stated,
to have been,
We
it
also have
was
snow
supposed to go
storms.
longer, but it didn't. That's
We did.
what's my sense of last year.
Yeah, I think snow fell and compacted the leaves, and then,
Right.
and maybe in December it warmed up at one point.
Right.
And then the leaves started blowing all over the place again. So it was an awkward weather year. It seems like the past 4 years have been awkward weather years, but I hope that we get it under control. We're never gonna get it 100% right, but we do the best.
Well, yeah,
I
it
mean,
was particularly bad last year, yeah.
If there is a problem over by the park, just contact DPW.
Well, I had to, because like I said, the leaves filled up that catch basin, and everything froze, and it started to rain one day, and the water was across Laurel Avenue at West Webster.
well, I think maybe we could come to an arrangement if we, I'm sorry, I stopped, I think we start to take time, so, something to keep in your system. If we run into that kind of situation, we can obviously work it out with DPW based on, what's happening. I remember last year, I think they were picking up vegetative waste until the start of the contract, for a few weeks. We had some kind of
Right.
arrangement, and DPW was doing that. So they compensate where the contract doesn't necessarily cover us. So
Right,
I don't
right.
think it'll be a
This year, the
problem.
contract runs from April through December 31st.
Right,
So-
right. Yeah, and there's actually a residual effect to this. Last Friday was the first pickup, this past Friday. I had 3 barrels of leaves, all residual stuff blowing over from the park from last fall. So there was quite a bit. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm sorry about that. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing no one, is there a motion to close?
Seeing no one, I make a motion that we close the public portion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Public portion is now closed. Is there anything to be discussed in open session before we move into closed session?
Are we okay with the amendment as presented, that we can prepare the documents that way?
We'll obviously come back into open, but, okay. Hearing no other things before council, closed session resolution, whereas the mayor and council of the Borough of Roselle Park wish to discuss matters which are described in the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, Sunshine Law, NJSA 10:4-12, and whereas the general nature of the subjects to be discussed in closed session are PBA contract negotiations amongst all unions, a workman's comp claim, and personnel matter regarding municipal land use board. Whereas the time, date, and place, whereas the time, when, and the circumstances under which the items to be discussed in closed session will be disclosed to the public at a future time, now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and council of the Borough of Roselle Park wish to adjourn the open portion of the meeting and open and closed portion of the meeting to discuss the above items. Is there a
Make a motion, we
to-
go to close.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion is carried. We are.
I make a motion to go back into public.
They did that.
Are there any other matters before council? We're going to await further information on grants to have our wrap-up meeting for capital, but this meeting will wrap up the current fund budget for 2014. Is there any other issues anyone wants to discuss? Oh, Jesus, what an amateur. We discussed, what were the items?
Thanks. Negotiation.
Negotiations with PBA, negotiations with all unions, personnel items with land use board, and
Potential litigation with workers' comp.
potential litigation with workers' comp. None of those issues were resolved. We have nothing further to report. Are there any other issues coming before council? Hearing none, we are going to await to schedule the next capital budget meeting and the wrap-up for the capital budget meeting. This will wrap up the current fund budget. We'll be voting on the amendment in the coming few weeks. I thank everyone for their work on the current fund budget, and is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion is accepted.
Carl.
Meeting adjourned.
Carl,